Welcome everyone to the Foul Play YouTube channel. We're on Open Mic 226, and today we're going to be looking at a podcast that's actually, well, it's 11 years, yeah, it's over 11 years old at this point. I thought I had listened to all this before, but I was talking to Doc and Cherie about this. I remember listening to a little bit of it, but I don't remember listening to all of it. If I did, I've forgotten. And it's got some interesting things, but we're going to get to that. So first, I want to say hello to Doc and Cherie. Cherie, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Hi, everybody, and welcome to Open Mic.
Thank you, Cherie. And Doc, how about you? Did you survive last night? Okay.
Yeah, it was a really interesting podcast, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. And thank you so much, Jack61, for putting this on. And welcome, Cherie, and welcome everyone in chat. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, this should be interesting. Um, because as I was telling you guys, and for those that haven't listened to it, there's some interesting things that are said by various people in this podcast. It's about roughly 25 minutes at the end of this. This podcast is called "Are You Sure?" Um, and it will play certain things or talk about certain events, whatever that have potential controversial one way or the other. How people think, "Are you sure this is what happened?" kind of thing, and kind of pose it to the listener to do their own research or whatever the case may be. So, first part of this one, I can't remember what it was about. The Penny Bernstein part, the 85 case, happens as you can see. Well, you can't see it yet. You're fixed to be able to see it. Pop this on the screen here. As you can see, it starts uh, pretty far into the podcast. So, um, there's some things that are said that I've not seen documented anywhere. That doesn't mean it didn't happen. I'm going to default and say, okay, maybe it did because it comes from Penny. There are other people that are involved in. Um, second here. There are other people that are involved in the case. Judge Hazelwood talks a little bit. Penny's husband, he's in there too. And but anyway, what my intentions are doing, we're going to play short clips. I don't want to violate anyone's. Uh, you know, this is their show, so we're going to play short clips, and I'm going to stop it, and we can discuss. Right. So if it takes us a couple of open mics to get through this, I'm okay with that. If we get do it tonight, I'm okay with that too. So, um, Doc, Cherie, any thoughts or whatever before we start? Have you guys listened to this at all?
I haven't, and I reckon it's fantastic that we can get to hear a bit of a historical perspective straight from Penny and her husband to put things in perspective of how things transpired, and be very interesting to hear her comments and her husband's comments about what happened in 1985.
I haven't either. I haven't heard it.
Uh-oh. Do we lose Cherie?
Did you? I said I haven't heard it either. Maybe I was muted.
No, it kind of, you started talking and then it kind of faded out. So, okay. Yep.
Okay.
All right. All right. Well, I'm going to get this started. And like I said, I'm just going to play short little clips this is straight from the website. There's a link in the description to this. So if anybody wants to go listen on their own, that's fine too. I put it up the other night for anyone that wanted to listen to it. And then we'll pause and discuss. If there's questions, as always in the live chat, put a Q. And Doc and Sheree, same. If you want to ask a question, whatever, just stop me we can always back up a little bit and re-listen. So, all right, let's get this show started. Are you sure? And please, you should be able to hear it. I hope you can. I don't need a reason why you wouldn't be able to, but here we go.
Hey, I'm Jad Abumrad.
I'm Robert Krulwich.
This is Radio Lab.
And we're still talking about certainty versus doubt. And in this final story, the two once again collide, but this time it's in a way that's almost unimaginable.
I remember running along a railroad track, a seldom used railroad track, but just thinking, God, it would be a blessing if a train just came along and flattened me. It was like...
We need to warn you now, if there are young or sensitive listeners listening right now, this next piece depicts graphic violence and it can be pretty disturbing. So if you're listening with kids, this would be a good time to ask them to leave the room or for you to put on headphones.
This piece comes from our producer, Pat Walters.
I guess we could just start at the beginning. So could you just, I don't know, set the scene? It was 1985?
Yes, it was 1985.
So this is Penny.
Penny Burnson.
And in 1985, Penny and her husband, Tom,
Yeah, I'm here.
were living in Wisconsin
On the shores of Lake Michigan.
in a little town called Manitowoc.
Owned a small third-generation family business.
And what kind of business was that?
Burnson's Candies. We're open 7 days a week, 10 to 10, 363 days a year.
But sometimes in the summer, Penny and Tom would cut out early and
Go to the beach. That's where we went that day.
July 29th, 1985.
Blue sky.
I'm going to pause it right here. Our first pause. I played about roughly a minute. So they've set the stage. And, much of this we already knew, right? There was some good run of detail. I cut out early, closed the shop up, went to the beach. Just to relax or whatever. And they had a pretty successful candy store, I guess, there in Manitowoc. I don't know how successful, but I think they did pretty well. Were afforded a decent life. I don't know of Penny or Tom had another place of employment. I don't think they did, or I know they didn't. So July 29th, 1985, of course, is a pivotal day for Stephen Avery and his family. So any thoughts or questions before we start? We've heard Penny and her husband right off the bat. And there's going to be more that's going to join here as well. Both good? Everybody good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. All righty. Let's continue on and listen to a little bit more. We're at 4754.
Guys, probably in the 70s. Perfect day to be at the beach with your family.
They parked the car,
2-3 o'clock in the afternoon, and
set up camp near the water.
And I was reading a book about Lizzie Borden, the infamous axe murderer.
But after about like an hour of reading this book, Penny set it down and
Said to my husband, I can't believe I'm reading this gruesome book on a beautiful day. I'm going to go for a jog.
Penny heads north along the water.
And when I was within about a half mile of my starting point, there was a guy standing with a leather jacket slung over his shoulder. And as I jogged by, he said, it's a great day. I glanced at him and said, it's a beautiful day for a jog. Didn't really think anything of it. Jogged 3 miles, turned around, and I saw
Same guy.
come out from under a half-fallen tree and head towards me.
She started to run. And we should say this next part gets graphic and violent.
Made the mistake of running into the water to try and get away from him, and realized how slowly I was running in the water. As I ran back to the beach, this man caught up with me, put me in a chokehold, and said, we're going to take a little walk up into the sand dunes. He pushed me up over this first sand dune where we were no longer visible to anybody, started asking me to do sexual things. He was trying to remove my swimsuit, and I twisted to try and get away, and he tightened his grip and said, do what I tell you, I've got a knife. 2 thoughts went through my mind. Stay really calm and get a good look at this guy. Caucasian, sandy blonde hair, curly beard and mustache, hairy hands, short stubby fingers. He pushed me down on the ground and was kneeling over me. And when I was refusing, what he would do was he would strangle me until I would about lose consciousness. And he would loosen his grip and say, now are you going to do it? And I would refuse. And as I'm talking, I managed to get one leg up and I kicked him in the groin. But unfortunately, it didn't incapacitate him. It enraged him.
Yeah.
And he said, no, I'm going to kill you. Now you're going to die.
Okay. This is, she's just described a really horrific event that happened to her. And I think a lot of this we already knew. This is a bit more detailed, and it's coming directly from her, many years down the road. We're looking at, here we are. For her, that would have been almost 25 years, and I'm sorry, 1585 to 2013, 28 years down the road. This is 2013 time frame. So,
I wonder what prompted Radiolab to cover this so long after. Did they know something was coming out? Or?
Apparently, one of their producers had heard about this case at some point. It doesn't really go into detail. It just said there toward the beginning, this story comes from our producer and gave their name, but it didn't give any detail. So apparently, someone in their group heard about this 1985 case with Penny Beerston and Steve Avery, and thought it would be because there was so much controversy, of course, with Avery getting released in 2003, wrongfully convicted, spent 12 years in prison that he shouldn't have. He was sentenced, not only for that case, but also the Sandra Morse incident, which kind of gets a bit washed in the whole thing, because the Sandra Morse incident happened months before the Penny Beerston incident, but he wasn't sentenced for that until this case went to trial and all that. It was so it kind of gets lost in the shuffle, as it were. I know for a long time for myself, I didn't really consider it, but then of course, when we really found out more and found out how that really occurred. So I thought I saw, looking for any questions I may have missed. I'm not seeing anything. Okay, so if there's no questions, let's listen to a bit more, because we're going to get into quite a bit more detail here. Well, actually, more detail. So I shouldn't say quite a bit more. All right, we're at 49:57. Let's go for another minute or so.
Meanwhile, Tom is getting worried.
Because she was so predictable in her patterns, she would normally be gone 45 minutes to an hour.
After an hour and a half, he started pacing the beach.
At 2 hours,
He called the cops.
the police brought in jet skis.
Were you thinking that she'd?
I was fairly convinced that she probably had drowned. In Manitowoc, you don't think about crime. You didn't lock your doors. You didn't. Many people left their keys in their car.
He started hitting my head either on a rock or a tree stump, some hard object. At one point, he broke my nose and then strangled me till I lost consciousness.
Sometime later, Penny woke up.
When I came to, I was lying on my back in the sand.
She saw that she was naked and alone.
I thought maybe he's in the woods, watching to see if I've survived or if he's accomplished what he set out to do. So I tried to stand up, was too weak and fell over.
And she noticed when she fell down that her hands were covered in blood.
And I thought, this is evidence. I need to preserve this. So I crawled through the sand kind of on my knees and the heels of my hands,
making sure she was keeping her fingers up out of the sand.
As soon as I saw her, I knew that she had been beaten.
I got to pause it here because I don't think they talk about this at all. And I don't guess it's a hugely important detail, but it's detailed enough. Apparently, there was, as I remember reading the information, there was a couple that found her and saw her and got her up, and then at some point, I guess within a short while, they got help there, and the cops were there, and all that. They got them there pretty quickly.
I remember hearing that too. And didn't they use that as an excuse for what the DNA under the fingernails? I can't remember exactly what it was, but because the couple got her a blanket or whatever. I remember that vaguely.
Well, Hazelwood, Doc, correct me if I'm wrong here, but Hazelwood, because when they did testing later, the DNA under the fingernails didn't match Avery, and it didn't. I'm not sure if they tested the husband or not, but
No. The testing that they did was very, very primitive. They only looked at 3 loci altogether, because remember back in, I believe it was 1996, the DNA testing was fairly primitive in terms of it wasn't extensive. And they looked at the fingernail scrapings, and they did find alleles that were different. They were different to both Penny and different to Stephen, which was indicative that Penny had scratched somebody and had DNA from somebody else. But you're correct, Cherie. The judge said, well, you never know. Penny could have touched her husband or could have touched one of the rescuers. We don't know whether that DNA was from a third party and not from the offender. So Judge Hazelwood rejected the results and sent Stephen back to prison.
Yeah, that's what I remember. Yeah,
I do want to make a comment though. I've just been taking notes. It sort of concerns me a little bit on how mechanistic Penny's answers are, and she's obviously being assisted by the radio show host and also her husband in filling in details. She made statements like, I had to keep my fingers up to preserve evidence and I had to do this. Let's think about it. You've just been violently attacked. Your
Right.
thoughts are not exactly about preserving evidence. Your immediate thoughts are, I need to get the hell out of here
Survive.
and survive.
Yeah.
It worries me that this is very, very heavily massaged in terms of, you think about it, this occurred in 1985. This interview is in 2013. It sounds very, very rehearsed. And now I'm not blaming Penny or anybody like that, because this would have been absolutely horrific.
Right.
But when you think about the time frame that this occurred in, you're not thinking straight. You're definitely not thinking straight.
Oh no, there's no. I mean, I've never been violently attacked, but I've been in some pretty, horrific situations where you're thinking about surviving and not
Full of
preserving.
Yeah, full of adrenaline. You're not. It's almost like she's giving a running narrative. It's extremely well rehearsed.
Yeah, and I've thought about this since I really listened to it in full the other night. I'd really like to have the full interview from all these people, because you can tell as we go through their drop-ins, you can tell these people are talking more, and there's a lot more to it, but we only get snippets. Because I'm sure that they could have made this quite a bit longer podcast, but they probably try to limit it to an hour or so. I really haven't checked their history, but so anyway, I guess that's just what they do, and that's fine. Double D says, Dr. Silkman asked you on Discord, but maybe you didn't see it. Are you familiar with item CV, the panties found in the white trailer on the salvage yard? I guess that's something.
No, I'm not familiar with that. I know that initially, when the investigators went around the salvage yard on November the 5th, they did find panties and other clothing items in some of the cars.
Yeah.
But I'm not aware of any. I know they found panties, found other clothing items. They also did swabbing of blood. But in terms of any analysis on panties, I don't know what the outcome was. I know
Well,
that.
this item was found, apparently, it was I think a purple thong that was found in a white trailer near where the license plate was found. And I just don't remember this white trailer. Apparently it got destroyed. But
Yeah,
I just
that trailer was on the same road that the boys walked home to go to their home. That white trailer, and the investigators went in the white trailer but didn't find anything of significance.
But they apparently found this purple thong in there. And I put up the receipt from the Wisconsin Crime Lab, and it does list it, but as far as I know, nothing came of it. Nothing at all. So, and I wanted to say hello to Susan. She has burned tires, locked up the brakes, and slid right in here.
You're right. I just got home.
Oh, good. You haven't missed too much.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah, we've Penny has talked about the attack and getting away. Then then Tom's on her husband about him calling the police. He's afraid she's drowned, but then they find her, and this is pretty much where we're at.
Okay.
Have you listened to this at all?
I have, yes.
Okay.
A while back, but yeah.
Yeah.
I have.
Yeah.
I think it's probably the same one that
Probably.
I listened to.
Um,
Hey, everybody. Happy Sunday.
Hello.
how you doing today besides work?
Doing good. Doing good. I made it through.
Yeah, Jay,
course-
it was a white trailer, not the blue one.
I think that's talking about the blue trailer.
Well,
I think somebody misidentified it as white. Was there another white trailer there?
I just don't remember. I remember the blue trailer. I was like I was telling Doc and Cherie, I don't remember a white trailer.
I mean, it's
maybe
light blue. I think they misidentified it as white. I don't know. You can look in the photos. I don't see any other trailers there.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look at the photos as well to remind myself.
I think there were several trailers on the property, but the prominent one that I'm thinking about was if you come out of Barb Yunder's home, it'll be to the right-hand side. It was actually on the gravel road.
Yes,
yeah, and the investigators did go in there.
Yeah.
It was in
It
pretty.
was
pretty
Stephen
rough.
had a bunch of stuff stored in there.
Yes, correct. Motor
Mhm.
parts, other bits and pieces. Correct.
Hey, look!
Yeah.
Look who else has joined us here! Oh my God!
It's
Oh my God.
sunshine.
Oh, yay. Hi, Sunshine.
Shalom, hello, y'all. Hello. I saw the link, and then I saw you were live, and then I jumped into yesterday's StreamYard, and I'm like, oh, I guess they can't see me. And then I got to looking, and I wasn't even on the right one. Oh, so
Yeah.
leave it to me. But hello, everyone, and I can't wait. I just saw the post where he posted the link to the podcast, and that he had discovered. Way to go, Hugh! Nice find. And I thought there was a white trailer, just to kind of like skip the hellos before I forget this line of thought. Wasn't there two trailers like on the side of one of the roads, like they used for storage?
I see Barb's saying right there, I believe there was only the blue one.
Okay. All right.
Barb's in
So
chat.
maybe
So
unless there's like a covered trailer, like you know how they have those utility trailers, they could simply be referring to like an old one of them, and because they use the word trailer interchangeably and we're thinking home, it could be signifying, you know, Barb would know if she's in the chat, if they had like a utility trailer or a horse
I don't
trailer,
recall
that was why.
seeing that in any photos.
Yeah,
I
me
really think
either.
they just misidentified the color.
Yep, and that's very possible.
Yeah, if it was
I'm
if it was like a light blue, I can see that
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to look through the photos here right quick, just to see. Oh wait, wow. All right, maybe we'll look at this. Well, I guess that could be a light blue. All right, we'll look at these later, just so we can close that. Maybe get an answer here. Anyway, welcome, Sunshine. Thanks for dropping in and listening to this.
Oh, thanks for having me. Always.
This has been around for a long time, and I like I said in the beginning, I do remember listening to some of this.
Hmm.
It's been a while. It probably a few years. Somebody found this link, but Hugh Fraser is the one that I talked to him on Facebook, and he reminded me of it. And I literally had forgot about it. And I know
So
we talked about it in another open mic, but we only talked about it. We didn't play any of it. Go
I
ahead.
find it interesting that Doc mentioned Penny is like, sounds really rehearsed and coached, because we know 1985, nobody knew about DNA. You know what I mean? And and she was so uh, violently assaulted. She was really incoherent, and you could tell like from how she doesn't even really remember much when she's, you know, talking. Like her, like in the hospital, I got the impression that she probably had a concussion, to say the least. And
Oh,
so
I agree.
yeah,
And
and so to now try and add in these steps that I don't think she could have even had the time to think that way, because she doesn't even remember most of it. It happened so quick. And then she took off running down the beach after. So I find it weird that she's trying to change her story, because
yeah,
there was nothing wrong with her, what she did through it out all. You know what I mean? She's the victim. So why not? Why are they trying to encourage her to remember what happened to her differently?
yeah, I found her statement a little weird, because in 1985 DNA was it was being looked at, but they hadn't perfected the process yet. I don't think that was until, what was it, Doc? 87 or 89, they successfully were able to
The well,
reproduce.
we're talking about the mid to late 80s when this technique started to come into vogue, but it was much later when they started doing PCR and those type of techniques. Polymerase chain reaction came much later, but certainly back in 1985, forget about it.
Yeah, I agree. So this preserving of evidence, I don't know. I tend to agree. Sunshine. Barb made an interesting comment. Did you know that Penny and Tom Kay were neighbors back then? Yes, we did know that. I don't remember how that came about, but that's in some documentation that we've got from someone. I don't remember where. And I actually think that they went to the same church, and Tom and Sheriff Kosarik were friendly. I won't say,
Their
anything
kids
more than
went
that.
to the same. Their kids went to the same school, if I remember right.
Yeah.
All of it, and it is very. interesting. Just
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
Well, he definitely took a lead role in the case. We know that. So okay. All right. Let's listen to another minute or so. We're at 51:18. Let's continue.
You never want to see someone like that, and I hope I never see that again.
The paramedics rushed Penny to the ER. Next thing she remembers, she was lying in a hospital bed surrounded by doctors and nurses.
Stitching, facial cuts. And then there's a female deputy who's questioning me.
She asked Penny to describe the guy.
Caucasian, sandy blonde hair, curly, hairy hands, stubby fingers.
And the next morning, the
So you
cops
can see
brought
them.
Penny down to the police station for a lineup. And this is where you go into a room and there's a one-way mirror.
You can see them, they can't see you.
There were 9 guys.
Each of the 9 had a number around their neck from 1 to 9.
She looked at one guy, then another, then another.
And when I came to, I don't know if he was number 3, I don't recall exactly.
One particular guy of the 9.
The hair on the back of my neck stood up. I remember the color draining from my face, visceral gut reaction. Like, oh my God, this is the guy.
Barely any time had passed since the attack. She was positive.
I'm going to pause it here because now we have to back up and fill in because there's more that happened. Remember, Gasirk was at the hospital and he had one of the deputies bring that stack of photographs. Remember? The jail booking photos? This was a big freaking deal.
Penny, if I could just say, Jack 61, she left so much important stuff. It's just not funny.
Yes. And that's the reason it caught my real attention because there's this huge gap of information that's left out of this. And I'll say just a little bit, and then anybody that wants to jump in and talk. We know that the stack of photographs was brought to the hospital and that Penny was shown many photographs right there that evening in the hospital. So was she already see a photo of Avery? Pretty sure that Gregory Allen wasn't in any of those, but I don't think he was, but we don't know that for sure. Nonetheless, I feel certain that she had seen Avery's booking photo from January after the Morris incident.
No question. No question. So, she basically jumped from Judy Dvorak questioning her to the lineup and then seeing Stephen. Well, the factor is, and I agree with you, she was actually navigated into seeing Stephen, the mugshot of Stephen. And as a consequence, when she went to the lineup and saw Stephen there, what do you think she did? She put 2 and 2 together. Oh my God, that's the same guy I saw in the photograph.
Oh, I think so too. No doubt.
Yeah.
It's interesting. So this is a podcast, right, that you're getting this off of, and it's clear that he has edited this to have it flow a certain way, right?
Yeah, it's like I said, I think these interviews of all these people that we're hearing were much more extensive, and they've just added in clips. So go ahead.
Yeah, this is what they accused Making a Murderer of doing. They're accusing Making a Murderer of editing in a way to make a narrative flow a certain way, right? More towards Stephen and Brendan being innocent. So I don't know what podcast this is from. Like I said, I haven't listened to it, but
it's called Are You Sure? And these guys, this group presents cases where there could be a different outcome than what many believe. There could be a different answer.
The main show is called Radio Lab, and I've listened to other shows, and maybe you have too, and that's kind of how whoever sets these all up. He kind of helps tell the story. insert comments from people. You'll see what I mean.
Mhm. Yep. This is a Radio Lab production. That's interesting. And this is prior to Making a Murderer being
Yes.
released, but
Yes.
after the short version of Making a Murderer was played at the film festival, which is where
Correct.
Netflix purchased it at.
Correct.
Okay. Yep. The plot thickens.
Yeah.
But
Go ahead, Doc.
I was going to say, but again, you see, this is the main issue when you don't go to the primary source material and you have something extensively spliced like this, as Sunshine Christina alluded to. If you're listening to this without the actual background story, you get driven down a path which is completely incorrect. Now, I understand, we've got to be very sensitive of what happened because it was truly shocking. But I think the whole idea here is witness misidentification. I really don't believe that's the case in this particular instance. I believe the law enforcement officers basically seeded the mind of Penny to pick Stephen. It was directed to pick Stephen. And that didn't come across from what Penny said, that, hey, I was in my hospital bed. I was being questioned by a female detective. I went to a lineup. Oh my God, I got the chills because guess what? I saw the same guy that I saw in the photograph. Well, yeah, that's exactly right.
Well, we've got another element here that I've not mentioned yet, but I'm going to now, and that's the pencil, Jean Couché, because he was there that night and allegedly did this sketch from what she described.
Yeah, and not forgetting what Judy Dvorak blurted out. Sounds like Avery.
Yes, that's right. And of course, we know that what Jean Couché drew was not what Avery looked like in July.
No, that's correct. That is correct. Yep, very good point. And notice how she described her attacker, stubby fingers, the beard, I think also pot belly as well. Completely different.
Curly hair.
Yeah.
Stephen had straight hair at that time.
That is correct. Yeah.
Yeah, and also forgetting the fact that Gregory Allen is not just an inch or two taller than Stephen. He's many inches taller than Stephen. He's a much bigger, taller man. I won't say necessarily bigger because Stephen's kind of, more of a stocky built guy.
Yeah.
And what Avery or Allen is kind of stocky, but he's considerably taller.
Yeah, and not forgetting a real important element when Penny was asked to describe the attacker's hands, and Penny said his hands were clean, whereas that Stephen's were greasy and oily because he worked with cars and vehicles, and they conveniently forgot that. Incredible, isn't it?
Yes, and I knew this would pique a lot of people's interest because of. So again, there's just a mountain of things and stuff that we still don't know to this day about what occurred that evening in that hospital room. And honestly, I doubt that Penny could probably even remember it. It probably didn't stick on all of it.
No,
because she's probably still in shock.
100% will be in shock, total shock.
And I wonder, how much of this is controlled by the fact that Stephen settled his lawsuit where the county didn't admit any guilt, so that they can't really air all the. Do you know what I mean? Because they have to live there. They know what was done to Stephen, even though the world doesn't know yet. Penny and her husband are well aware of what happens when you get on the wrong side of Tom Kusurik and company, right? And,
I would imagine.
And so they want to make it clear that they're putting their position on the record and they're not going to steer away from what the narrative has been since Teresa Halbach's disappearance.
And we also
So-
can't forget the depositions and what happened. And Tom Kasurek was, he missed the bullet train by one day because Avery was arrested and they played keep away with Avery all afternoon. And Glenn and Kelly got concerned of him being unalived somewhere.
Yeah, but Sunshine Christina made a very good point regarding keeping the narrative straight. They go in with a particular narrative and they need to stick to that narrative at all costs. That is, it was a misidentification and it was not the fault of anyone. That's the critical part. That's a good point, Sunshine.
Yeah, I'm going to answer. We're going to get into this. I'm going to pop a question on from Passive Bear. I'm going to tell you right now, this is talked about a little bit here in a few minutes. Why was Gregory Allen called the Sandman? Anyone want to answer that?
I've never really got an answer. Like, I've never heard anyone answer that with an answer that I felt was adequate. So I'm curious to see what's said, to be honest with you.
Well, what happened? Go ahead, Sheree.
Yeah, I was going to say what you're going to say, I think, because of what happened before, some other things.
The year before, he was caught about a mile away on that same stretch of beach attacking someone else.
And perhaps, he had attempted other things on the beach.
Yeah.
That we don't know about.
Okay. So we're thinking it's related to him doing his crimes on the sand on the beaches of Lake Michigan. Is it Lake Michigan?
Yes.
Yeah. Because whenever, go ahead, Susan.
I mean, he would also creep into people's houses in the middle of the night.
That's what I'm an 80s, 90s rock race kid. So when I hear the Sandman, I always think of the Metallica song. I don't even know when that debuted. I'll Google it. But I always think about him prowling in the middle of the night. So,
yeah,
but both fit.
Could be either. Yeah.
Yeah, both fit.
From what I've heard, because remember, I think that name, Sandman, was mentioned in the depositions. And if I recall, it's because of what he had done the year prior, attacking and doing lewd activities on that stretch of beach in the sand. But it's interesting that they actually coined the name Sandman for him.
Yeah, it is.
And all of a sudden, their minds went blank after Penny got assaulted. Oh, who's the Sandman? Yep, interesting.
Well, for the cops to coin anyone a nickname,
yep,
that automatically says, okay, this guy's done more than just one thing.
He's got prior history. He's got prior history.
Exactly. Yep. I agree. Looks like some discussions talking about the editing and MAM and so forth in the lawsuit. Yeah, that was a whole another interesting thing. And I didn't talk about this when I was, last night when I said we were going to do this tonight. This ultimately is going to lead, and Sunshine, this is in much thanks to you. This is going to lead to another relatively deep review of Gregory Allen, because I think he needs to be brought up again, and his history and what. Now, I'm not going to cover everything, but certainly talk about at least some of what he did in the 80s, leading into what happened to Avery, and then what Allen did ultimately in 91 to that woman in Hennepin County, Minnesota. That was a big deal. Big deal. And then we'll get more into that. And then,
of course, nobody's talking about that besides us, though.
Well, no, it's unfortunate that
and that's where I feel like if people like Candace Owens and, people with these large platforms, if they're truly seeking justice and truth
Right.
for justice and truth's sake, they wouldn't hop on the latest. Let's talk about what everybody else is talking about bandwagon. Let's talk
Yeah.
about the stuff that really affects people who don't have a voice on a platform where I have a voice. That
Right.
to me is how justice is done.
Well,
So,
this is
um,
the other side of the. This is a part of the coin that just gets left out. It gets that piece of the pie is just left out, and it's such an important piece that it really deserves its own moment in the sun, as it were, to fill
yeah,
that in.
because it's clear that Gregory Allen has just as much to do with Stephen Avery's 2007 wrongful conviction. Is that right? As
Well,
he
yeah.
did the one that happened to him in 1985. Both
Well, in many ways,
cases, yeah,
yeah,
both cases are
linked.
are due to, yep, they are linked to the state of Wisconsin's willful treatment of a known predator of women and children, and how they chose to allow what he did to be hidden from public view while they exploited a low IQ, very, very, let me be, a very minimal havoc wreaking individual. I mean, the people he drove crazy, I'm sure he drove them crazy because Stephen Avery's one of them obnoxious kind. I've listened to enough of his phone calls to know he can grate your last nerve when he wants to, right?
Oh
But
yeah,
he was not a person who prowled entire counties looking for anyone. He stayed close to home. Gregory Allen, I mean, we have a case that he's implicated in North Carolina,
that's right.
with that little girl. And
That's right.
then
He fled.
yeah, and then what Seeking Truth for Good got a hold of, that I then kind of tried to put into uh, with your help, we tried to track. He's got open cases, or the potential to have open cases all over the, half of the United States
That's
because
right.
of the jobs he did. And no one cared enough, or no one had the courage to investigate it.
Well, or he just wasn't. Well, and this is where another part of the question comes in because of how far back he was doing things in that Manitowoc area region. It was actually the region. It wasn't just Manitowoc County. It was other counties involved too. He was allowed to operate under the radar, and his charges kept getting knocked down, knocked down, knocked down. And it wasn't until he did a couple things that he really served any real jail time. A lot of times things were he was charged as a felon, maybe not a class A felon, but certainly he did some pretty terrible things, and those charges would get knocked down to trespassing or some misdemeanor, and he would pay a little fine or whatever, and maybe spend a night or two in jail. And he was done. He's gone.
Well, they'll being continuously trivialized.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a real concern.
Yeah, and Stephen Avery's were maximized every
They were
time.
elevated. They were elevated.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that was during a time where everybody pled out to a lesser charge because the in the jail part, it wasn't as lucrative as the prison part. So if it was a crime that they could send you home and make $50 off a ticket, they would just do
They would.
that versus having
Yeah.
to feed you and have
Yeah.
people
House you.
watch you.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. And Susan, you were correct. Gregory Allen is a monster. I think a lot of people, enough people truly know. I think that's another part of the problem, Christine, is a lot of people just don't know the extensive extensive list of people he offended. It's a long, long list. And I'm just saying this as an opinion. I think there's bodies tied to him that we don't know anything about, and that other police departments don't know anything about him at all because he didn't leave any evidence that could tie him to it across the country. I truly believe that.
Or the sake kits disappeared during all of this.
Or went bad.
Yep. Or went bad or were damaged because, you see a lot of that is, either they were stored improperly or the
Yep.
basement flooded. You hear that a lot.
Kids get lost and so forth.
Which is
And
why
what the
I
hell
find...
is? Sorry, go ahead.
No. Go ahead.
I just say, what the hell is up with Vogel covering his ass? What?
Yeah.
In God's name.
I wonder if I can find that letter. I always come back to Dennis Vogel trying to convince the cops they didn't see what they thought they saw. Like, who does that on a legal document?
We just don't know, Susan. It seems like we're missing a key piece there, right?
Yeah.
That's what it seems like to me.
Did he not retire shortly after that? And
Vogel?
Mm-hmm.
No, he resigned his post in '86 and went into private practice in another county.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Oh, okay.
Resigned his post.
Yeah.
I said retire. I meant resigned. Yeah.
He did.
If I could just make a comment. I do agree with Sunshine Christina. I do believe that there's a missing piece of the puzzle between Gregory Allen and Dennis Vogel. There's something not right.
I do too.
Big time, obviously. I mean, this man completely ignored the evidence that it was Gregory Allen.
He even alibied.
Gave him an alibi. Gave him a false alibi.
That's right.
Well, they also had his own staff members speak to him and say, look, this doesn't sound like Stephen Avery. This sounds like Gregory Allen. And someone like Vogel should know, because Gregory Allen apparently used to even come into his office. Remember that time when he came in to say that, oh, no, it couldn't have been me because I wore these different types of shoes.
That's right.
I just dropped that. Can I drop that into the chat? I just dropped it into the on-air text. I don't know where to put it. The letter that he wrote on behalf of Gregory Allen. I just copied it and dropped it into, I think, on-air text. Let me see where I put it.
Yeah, I got it. I see it.
Okay. Because that's what I think of anytime I think of like their treatment of Stephen Avery and Gregory Allen's name came up. Why is the elected DA defending Gregory Allen to
a monster
officers? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, on official legal documents at that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I'll put that up before we get out of here and we can read it, because this is going to get deep. This is going to get deeper into. They're going to bring Allen up. So, and we'll this question from Candace Boxley: where's Tonka search status today? We'll talk about that before we go. I'll leave this question highlighted. See if there's any others here before we continue. Hello, Trav. Thanks for dropping in. Alrighty.
Did you get the question right above that, right above Trav from Kansas Boxley?
Oh, I didn't. I missed that. Similar question to Ari Vogel. Where did his career take him after the
1985?
Yeah. What is curious about association with Greg Allen? I can't remember what county Vogel ended up in, but it was some distance away from Manitowoc. He went into private practice. He went into a group. It wasn't his own. He joined another firm. And then, I don't know how long he worked there. I think he think he left there and maybe did some others before he landed at another private firm. I can't remember. Sunshine Christina, I think, ran a lot of that down back a couple years ago. But he ultimately stayed in private practice, as far as I know, as far as I can remember.
And then retired to Arizona. Is that right?
That I don't remember.
If I
I
remember
He
don't.
still
correctly.
serves. He still has. Am I muted? Let me make sure.
No, you're not.
Okay. He still. He still shows as having a law license in Wisconsin. And if I recall, he oh, that's funny. Somebody posted a really ugly comment on this. But if I remember right, he kind of does like insurance, wink wink, insurance and civil litigation, um, and contract law. That is like where he focuses. Like the group that he works with, that's what they do. His wife's an attorney as well.
He's a rich wife.
Yep, very wealthy wife. If you take any of your pots and pans that have um what's it called? What's the name of the company?
What is
Most
it?
of the pots and pans made prior, like between World War One and the 80s, were manufactured in the Manitowoc, Wisconsin area,
Was
and
it
were
Miro?
likely, yeah,
Oh,
it's
sorry.
the Miro, yep, the Miro factory. That's who his wife's family were co-founders of that.
Yeah,
And
pretty lucrative foundry.
oh yeah, yep. Especially during the wars, they made a ton of money.
Oh yeah.
A Danny Brewer fan just posted about Dennis Vogel.
An attorney at Wheeler, Van Sickle, and Anderson, South Carolina, SC, where he concentrates commercial litigation that focus on matters involving utilities, electricity, and cellular telecommunications. Interesting. I would
I wonder if
imagine
he's
he didn't.
in close proximity to the prison of Gregory's in, so he can go visit.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd be
Danny also
surprised.
asks, was Gregory always a local? Did he grow up with any of the lead characters?
Yeah, I saw that question. I highlighted it actually.
Okay.
He, I don't think he had any family in Wisconsin. I don't remember why he fled there.
Do you know, Christina? Do you remember?
I can't remember.
So his mama is from, and Mystic Jinx is the one that did the research, I believe, that brought this out. His mama is from Minnesota. So, and it's very common when you're like committing crimes to run across the border. So he bounced back and forth between Manitowoc and
He sure
Hennepin
did.
County, that area. But
He
he
sure did.
also had a brother who lived in like one of the Dakotas, because I tried to call him once, just to see if I could get him on the phone. And then his dad, I believe, remarried, and his dad and stepmom had two younger children, maybe three. And then Dennis Vogel himself has children.
Yeah, he's got a dog.
Two. Hmm?
Not Bogle, but Al. I remember Alan had a daughter and a son, if I remember correctly. Does that sound right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's two sons and a daughter, but it could
Oh,
only
okay.
be one. And um one of his sons looks very much like him. They are all law abiding citizens. Um and actually they've done very well for themselves. And I'm not gonna name them
Right.
because what they have what was done by Gregory Allen was done when they were young and probably, thankfully unaware of. But I do know from some records that I got from the prison system that one of his sons is his emergency contact. And if he was ever to be released or an event of his passing, his belongings or he will reside there. So,
Jim
so there
Crane
is some
says,
sort of relationship.
Jim Crane says, in the bigger picture, my guess is this is a group effort by insiders to shut down Avery for reasons we don't know, and so Gregory Allen had to be eliminated as a suspect. And that's the way it comes across. It does.
And
Because-
that brings up the whole Dave Bagatka stories of when he owned the bar and the,
Yes.
the group of townspeople that
We're in power.
were
Had
nefarious.
pull.
Yeah,
People that had
sex
pull.
parties and shit, and God knows the whole story behind it.
Yeah.
It's not pretty, I'm sure.
Right. All right. I want to pop this back on stage. Let's listen to a little bit more. We're at 52:19. Let's continue a little bit.
The sheriff wasn't surprised. They'd had their eye on this guy for a while. His name was Stephen Avery. He'd been arrested for some small-time stuff, burglary, cruelty to animals, and most recently,
Attempted assault at rifle point.
he pulled a gun on a woman.
So
The DA indicted him for attacking Penny. The trial was fast.
very fast.
Penny got on the stand and said,
I was 100% certain that Stephen Avery was the man who assaulted me.
She
I want to interject something here. Maybe a couple things, because it's important. Again, the missing information is key. There was a point somewhere in here prior to her testifying that Penny had some doubts at this point, and
She was 99% sure. I recall
Yeah.
that from somewhere.
yeah, it's documented, and Vogel had a discussion, or historic. You get on the stand, you've got to be 100%. You've got to be 100%.
And I believe that she also called up the sheriff as well, Tom Kacerik.
Yes.
Because remember, what Penny forgot to mention was the fact that Gregory Allen actually called her at home.
That's right.
Yep, and which used to be his MO. It's really funny. Not to be disrespectful, but had I been listening to this podcast, I would have turned it off at this stage. I wouldn't have listened to it anymore. It's complete garbage.
Well, this again, trying to understand what they're doing here, because leaving out some of these small details, they're key details too.
Yeah.
About a different character and his MO, as you just mentioned. Allen was notorious for calling these people that he's assaulted after the
Phoning
fact.
up his victims. Yep, phoning up his victims. It was a power game. It was a power game.
Absolutely.
You, Doc, I thought you were talking about the open mic.
No. Had I been listening to this podcast, are you sure? The way it's been so heavily spliced and put together, and the fact that we've spent months and months and months on the depositions, going through the primary documents, going through all the material, doing all the hard research, and then when you listen to this, the amount of information, critical information that has been conveniently left out, it's truly, truly shocking.
That's why I thought this one will be a good one for rebuttal.
Are you getting my blood pressure up here, Jack 61?
I knew you wouldn't like. I mean, you like it, but it's
yes.
I'm a little. I do criticize them for not putting it in, but again, I don't know their time constraints or I just don't know how they operate that would drive them to leave some of these key things out, or maybe they just didn't know. They didn't do enough research and find it out for themselves, right?
Well, like I said, I believe that there is a clear-cut narrative in this particular podcast about misidentification, that it didn't involve any other third party, it didn't involve law enforcement. They did
Well-
nothing nefarious. It was just an innocent mistake, and we could all go home and get a cup of tea.
Well, Gregory Allen is going to come up. It's going to come in here. Yeah, it's going to come in here. So, but it's not enough for me from what we know, right? But there's another aspect of the trial that is not in here either. And Doc or anybody that wants to jump in here, what did Vogel make Tom and Penny do during the trial?
They made them reproduce the attack in front of everybody. Reenact the attack.
Her
twice.
And her husband. I mean, who does that to a victim?
And let's keep in mind, this had to have been practiced in the pretrial probably, and when they were, not in court. They had to, get this down, practice it. So how many times did they actually live through? She have to live through that crap.
Correct. But again, it's really funny, in an ironical way, because that's exactly what Mr. Kratz did with the shock and awe of the March 2nd press conference. Yep. And they did precisely the same thing in 1985 in front of Stephen. Tom Kacerik would have been there in front of his family, his friends, who were all looking at each other thinking, wait a minute, Stephen was actually with us. What the hell's going on here? Yep. No, that goes to show how impressions and perceptions are what they are.
Yeah. Okay. Let me check here before I get too far away. I'm just checking.
One day we're going to get that 85 case.
Yeah.
I sure would like to have the transcripts.
I'd like to have the whole case file. And I know it would cost us several $1,000s, but I'd really like to have it to see what's in that file. Photos, police reports, pre-trial.
Yeah.
I'd like to see it because I think we would be even more shocked than we are now.
You mean like Gregory Allen's initial arrest photo being disappearing and replaced?
Well,
you mean that type of shock?
Yeah.
And remember Avery's photo, "Do not throw away," signed by Tom Kacerik, was written on the back.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. So, all right, let's continue because I've got a feeling we're going to be stopping again here pretty quickly. We're at 52:45.
She had no doubt. She looked people squarely in the eye. Her recollections were unequivocal. She was a very strong witness.
This is Fred Hazelwood. He was the judge on the case
here in Manitowoc County.
Tell me about his alibi.
His alibi was that he just didn't have the time to commit the crime.
Because he was shopping.
He bought some paint, I believe, or drywall compound. I'm not sure what. He was also working that day before the alleged assault, helping his family pour cement for some project at home. That was his testimony and the testimony of a whole bunch of other witnesses.
16. Only problem was nearly all of them were family.
And the stories were too similar.
This is Tom again.
Virtually identical.
It sounded like they had gotten together and talked.
That was a credibility issue that affected the defense witnesses.
And there was one other big problem for Avery. His clothes.
There was not a microscopic speck of concrete dust on any of the clothes that he wore that day. And he indicated at the trial that he had worked the end of the concrete chute. Well, anyone that has ever done that at the end of a concrete truck knows that that just comes out and splashes.
After deliberating for 2 days, the jury found Steve Avery guilty.
Guilty on.
I'm going to pause it here again because they left out another key part, and that is Avery and Lori and the kids, 2 newborns, twins, had went shopping in Green Bay, which was at least 40 minutes away. Right,
I think, yeah, that's correct. I think what we just heard, you could almost replay it. This is the type of shocking mentality of self-denial. And from these individuals here, you will never get an apology that they had made a mistake. This, to me, is the greatest form of denial, the greatest form of we didn't do anything wrong. And listen to what the judge said, because remember, the judge also effed up as well in multiple occasions. So just because Stephen Avery was with friends and they all saw him, those witnesses were regarded as a waste of time and useless, because according to what Penny said, it sounded all rehearsed. And yet what does Kratz do? Kratz always runs through testimony and questions with his witnesses. He prepares his witnesses like every other attorney does. Make sure that your story is straight. Because of those 16 alibi witnesses happen to know Stephen, he's pouring concrete for family and friends, they were regarded as inconsequential, a waste of time, collusion, and how about if Stephen forgot that he changed his shirt? Because remember, Stephen is not the sharpest tool in the shed. So because he didn't have any concrete dust, somehow all those 16 alibi witnesses became zero. The fact that he was with 5 of his children and his wife at a store, that all became inconsequential. This is the type of thinking that allows innocent people to remain in prison. You just heard it from these guys. I've never heard anything like that.
The sheriff or somebody had the 2 of the cops do a timing thing,
Yes,
and
they
he had to speed 15 to 20 miles over the speed limit to
limit.
just make it. That's not
Yes.
even including the family.
That is correct. That goes to show the level of desperation these guys are to clear their conscience so they can sleep at night.
Well,
The fact that all those witnesses had the exact same story, it's because they were telling the truth and what actually happened. And they all have the same story because they were all together that day pouring concrete.
Correct.
There's another aspect of the story too, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm remembering Arlen Avery was there, and he wanted to take the jacket, and Kasoric warned him not to do it.
There was also the cashier. Well, there's something to do with that jacket. I don't remember if it's that Arlen wanted to take it, but I know the black jacket was a big deal because when what's her face, who inserted herself into the investigation? Who's that chick I don't like from the DCI?
Deb Strauss.
Yeah.
Deb
Yeah,
Strauss.
because Deb Strauss questioned them all about it, but I'm pretty sure that was probably in the tape she burned, like the actual truth. But when she recorded the interviews, but then destroyed the tapes 2 weeks later and made sure to note that in the file after she wrote
and
those.
her notes.
But there was also the cashier who remembered by selling them the paint. He had the receipt from buying the paint, which is why they had to make the time work to begin with, because that was physical evidence that put him in Green Bay with his 5 children and his wife, who just had 2 twins. And anyone who's given birth knows women are not moving fast when they got newborn babies in the car.
They weren't that old at all. They were
3 or 4 days, I think.
Well, it
They
was. I was
were
going to say.
young.
I was
Maybe
say
a week.
Yeah, maybe a week.
Yeah. Or
yeah,
a week or less. They were new. Yeah.
And and I'm just going to add this so Doc can piggyback on it if he chooses. But I don't have faith in the crime lab actually really testing for concrete dust, to be honest with you. I could see them saying they did and didn't. I mean, do you know of an actual forensic test report that say, yeah, and
but it's what the judge said that made me laugh. I mean, he expected Stephen Avery to be covered in concrete sludge and all this sort of stuff. Well, how about if he just changed his shirt and had forgotten about it? Like I said, Stephen's not the sharpest tool in the shed. But what is incredible here is that people often are in disbelief of how collusion and corruption can occur. You just heard it. You just heard it right.
It's going to get worse, Doc. You're going to be incensed by what Hazelwood says towards the end here.
I've got to go. I've got to go, Texas.
Yeah. All right. Let's listen to a little bit more. We are at 5401.
3 counts, as I recall.
Yeah. Sexual assault.
15 years.
Attempted murder.
15 years.
And I believe false imprisonment.
2 years for false imprisonment.
32 years altogether.
To be served consecutively.
So you go back to the chocolate shop and try to carry on with life as it was before?
Right. Essentially.
But that obviously wasn't so easy.
Nightmares, flashbacks.
She was angry.
Blowing up at my kids.
Your husband.
Sometimes I would want my husband to be protective, and other times he would think he was being protective, and I would say, I can take care of myself.
When a guy in the street whistled at her?
I turned around and just let loose with every obscenity in the book.
Yeah. She started seeing a therapist, which helped a little. But even a year after Steve's conviction, she was still struggling with all this anger. And then one snowy afternoon,
maybe winter of 86, 87,
she went to see a talk by this social worker.
Dr. Mark Umbright from the University of Minnesota. And I don't remember exactly what he said. I don't think he used the word forgiveness, but he said at some point, victims reach the point where they understand that the anger and hatred they're feeling is really damaging themselves and their families, and they need to let go of it.
I'm going to pause it right here. We're a minute or so, minute 15 seconds, 20 seconds. So the story's going to make a shift here, and some other things are going to come in. Bob did make a comment that the twins were 6 days old at that time on that day. So anyway, the story's going to make a shift here. Penny's been carrying a lot of anger and, over the attack, and it's really messed with her. And I believe that. I mean, I've never lived through anything like that, but I can only just imagine putting myself in a position where I've been attacked and just had the hell beat out of them.
But can I just make the comment? Because unfortunately, I do have to go soon. It's interesting that there was no mention at all the effect on Stephen being falsely accused.
No.
And the utter devastation that it caused him personally, his family, his children, and the Avery salvage yard, the reputation of the Avery salvage yard, everything.
His parents, his brothers and sisters.
Correct. Had to carry
so
that
many,
and burden.
So correct. Yeah.
Correct. All victims. All victims.
Yep. Well, we're fixing to make a jump here shortly to 2003. Or I think it's coming up here pretty quickly. So I can't remember exactly how long, but let's listen to a little bit more so we can get to it before Doc has to go. We're at 52 or 55:22.
And I left the presentation at the next break. I went home, I got my cross-country skis. I went to Point Beach State Park and skied to the point where I was, exact spot where I'd been assaulted, and basically said to myself, Steve, you don't have power over me anymore. So that was a turning point.
Penny actually started working in the prisons. She'd go and tell inmates her story,
hoping to teach the impact of crime and hope that they might make the leap to changing their behavior.
Meanwhile,
Stephen Avery has a number of appeals, and he's turned down at all his appeals.
She had told the district attorney,
if anyone so much as breathes Stephen Avery's name in court, I want to be notified and I want to be there for every hearing. And I did show up. And I'm getting more and more angry every time there's appeal. Like, is there no finality? Is there no closure to this?
He kept asking the court to review the evidence over and over again.
And I'm thinking, why is he so persistent?
And then one Sunday morning,
in early September
in 2003, 18 years after Steve Avery's conviction, Penny gets a call from her lawyer friend, Janine.
And Janina's called and said, can I stop by? I want to talk to you about a restorative justice initiative at Marquette.
Frankly, was the truth, but it wasn't why I was driving to Manitowoc on a Sunday.
On her way, Janine called Penny's husband, who had left town for a business trip that morning.
Janine told me what she had just discovered and heard.
It was about a DNA test. She asked Tom to turn around.
Tom and I both pulled into the driveway
Together.
simultaneously.
I walk outside and both of them are ashen.
And in that moment,
she knew.
I knew instantly.
I'll always remember the look on her face.
The DNA is back. It is not Stephen Avery.
Okay.
Wow.
You just found out it wasn't Stephen Avery. It's going to get more into the impact it had on her immediately. A little bit. I mean, they don't go too far, but yeah, it's certainly talked about.
I think subconsciously she knew all along. She didn't know consciously, but I think she probably knew subconsciously and it popped out.
That's possible. It's very possible.
But the question, the greater question is, how do you cope through life when you're not 100% sure, right? Because remember, the Tom Kacerik is continuously whispering in her ear, "We got the right guy. You got nothing to worry about." What Penny didn't disclose was the fact that a gentleman off the street went to her chocolate business and said, "I think they got the wrong guy." Penny or Tom phoned up Tom Kacerik. Tom Kacerik got hold of this guy and said, "If you do this again, I'm going to arrest you."
Yep.
Right?
Well, not to mention the phone call she got after Stephen was arrested.
That is correct.
From Gregory Allen.
From her attacker. So you can see the amount of effort to ensure that Penny had nothing to worry about, that we got the right guy. That is why Penny, on receiving the news that Stephen was innocent of her attack, was so devastating.
Yep.
God, yeah.
Yep. I can't imagine accusing someone they get convicted for a day, and I was wrong. I can't. Because you're basically warehoused in a box.
12 years.
But but you see, she's living a lie for all these years. In the back of her mind, she would have been thinking, did I make a mistake? Am I sure? And she was continuously being reassured by those individuals who had the greatest to lose, the sheriff.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. All right, let's listen to a little bit more of where this goes. 5717.
She just fell apart. I told her I wanted to go in and sit down, and she went and sat on the couch next to Tom and
explained to her the Wisconsin Innocence Project had reevaluated some of the biological material from the crime scene,
some hairs,
and determined
that an innocent person has spent 18 years. I think it was 18 years, 1 month, and 13 days in prison for something he did not do.
You know, she looked very frightened. And I said, Penny, I want you to remember all the good you've done.
Working in the prisons, all the men you've reached.
You know, I mean, she didn't say much.
I remember feeling if I wrote down every good deed I had done from the day I was born until today, it would not possibly be sufficient to balance the scales in terms of this horrendous error that I've made. That day was worse than the day I was assaulted.
And there was one more thing.
Then I learned not only was there an exoneration, but there was a hit.
The court told Penny that the DNA belonged to a man
named Gregory Allen,
who at that moment was in prison for
a very brutal rape of a woman in Green Bay, Wisconsin. He'd actually been charged with an attempted assault on the same beach where I was assaulted. His nickname was the Sandman because he liked to come up over the sand dunes and grab someone.
And for 10 years, while Steve Avery was in prison, he'd walked free.
So I'm thinking, how many other women have had their lives turned upside down and inside out because I misidentified the man who assaulted me?
Yeah. Well, I can safely say several. I think any of us that have studied this case can say it was many, and one of them was a brutal assault in 1991.
God only knows how many.
So she made that comment as if there's more than the 2 assaults we know of that occurred on that beach. Are y'all getting that vibe
Yes.
from
Well,
her?
Yes.
I think she's probably speaking of knowledge she's found out since, it was revealed about Gregory Allen. I'm sure she's probably looked on her own and maybe even been told by her lawyers or whatever. This guy's a pretty bad dude. That's what I'm getting.
He
Christina.
was fond of hiding in the sand dunes and going down and attacking women.
Well,
Yeah, but
That's what she said.
so that's yeah. And so who else is out there? Because I don't know I know of the attempted and I know of her. And
was there
she's
others?
speaking from what she just said, I think there's more.
Well,
Now I'm curious.
I mean, at least it just kind of leads me to think that there were others that where maybe he was suspected and questioned but not charged. But
if I could just make a comment, guys, I disagree with Penny. Penny did nothing wrong. Penny did not misidentify anybody.
No.
She was directed to pick Stephen. That's the whole crux of the civil suit. And Penny is now carrying this burden that she had misidentified her attacker. And what did Peg Lottenschlager actually do in her report? Who did she lay the ultimate blame to?
Penny.
Her. Penny and the lawyers.
Penny and the lawyers, correct.
As far as I know, Clack Family says, has anyone ever interviewed Gregory Allen? I don't think he's ever granted an interview.
She also blamed lack of funding. Peg Lottenschlager. She said
And
that
lack of communication.
Yeah, which all comes back to we need more money.
Yeah.
However, the local law enforcement managed what? City police. One of them went to Kasurik or Vogel, right? And told them they thought it was Gregory Allen. That's communication between the two agencies.
And they had him under surveillance.
Correct.
Yes.
Well, she talks about the surveillance here, I think, here shortly, and kind of how that went down. I guess what she was told. But getting back to Peg, Christina, Susan, everybody, we have a interview on PBS for Peg Lottenschlager is interviewed. Do you guys remember that? I think I've got that. I think I've got that.
Yeah, it makes me want to throw up.
The one we found right after she lost. She's sitting at a round table with the 2 guys.
I can't remember it. No, it was a woman that was interviewed. I'm pretty sure.
Or maybe no. It was a woman and a man and her, and it's right after she lost her bid for re-election. Yep, yeah, that is a very interesting interview.
Yeah.
Yes, I remember that. And there was a question regarding Gregory Allen. Had he ever been interviewed? I found a short little clip where they asked Gregory Allen whether he had assaulted Penny, and he denied it. He denied it. The guy is a true evil sexual predator to the core. He denied it. I'll see if I could find that clip.
Cool. Kelly Allen says, was Penny ever shown a mugshot of Gregory Allen? I don't think she was. I don't think she was.
No.
Not that I'm aware of.
And remember, there's a mugshot of Gregory Allen that disappeared. It's gone. Because we've tried to find it.
With curly hair.
That's right.
I've never seen him with curly hair, but he did have curly hair at that time.
That's
because
right.
the girls in the office attested to that.
That's right.
They thought that pencil sketch was Gregory Allen, the girls in
Yes.
Vogel's office.
Looks more like Gregory Allen than it does Avery.
Yeah. I'm sure she's seen pictures of him since Stephen was exonerated.
Yeah,
Penny.
except the mugshot, the earlier mugshot, which was closer to the time when Penny was attacked by Gregory, disappeared. They changed the picture to a later one.
Yes,
that's right.
And they used Stevens from what, February, January?
Yep.
January.
Correct.
And this
Correct.
took place at the end of July?
Yes.
That's right.
That's
so
correct.
In January, Stephen had curly hair.
Yes.
And in July, he had straight hair.
Yeah, straight hair.
And that's why, remember, we had that argument.
Oh, yeah. With Brenda.
With Brenda regarding the fact that Jean Couché drew the exact hairstyle that Stephen Avery had when he got arrested the first time, rather than the second time when he had straight hair.
That's right.
To the millimeter. He got absolutely, all he did is traced it. He copied it, direct copy.
No doubt. There's no doubt in my mind. All right. We're at 58, 59. Let's listen to a little bit more.
Wait, Jack.
Yep.
I'm just reading what Justin Stricken just wrote. The people blaming Penny are the ones who believe he's innocent. They get mad she didn't defend him.
Well, no, we don't blame Penny.
Who blames Penny, right?
It's Peg. Peg
I don't blame Penny.
No, not at all.
And Peg didn't believe Stephen was innocent.
No.
I find it all the time in comment sections, not you guys.
Yeah, the people who blamed Penny in the investigation were the cops, the what she called the Attorney General. The Wisconsin Attorney General, and anyone speaking to advocate for the for it not being Manitowoc County's fault that the wrong person was incarcerated, because everyone besides the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Office and Dennis Vogel knew it was Gregory Allen. Knew it.
Yeah.
Because there was no one else committing any kind of crime like that in that style, had done it multiple times. On top of all the other stuff, they had just investigated him a few months prior because North Carolina cops had reached out to them, asking them to see if they could help close the case where that little girl was killed. And they had all just worked on that case and found out even more stuff about him. And yet they're going to sit up there and pretend this very small sheriff's department at that time didn't communicate with others. Everybody stayed in their box, in their lane, and nobody talked to anybody about violent crimes being committed in that county against women and children.
Bullcrap and shenanigans.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he was stealing women's bathing suits and underwear off the clothesline. He was peeping. Gregory Allen was like wide open.
He was sneaking into bedrooms and raping women.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Well, now I'm talking about like the stuff that yeah. Let me be clear. He was sexually assaulting women, beating up his old lady, he broke her face.
Yep.
Right. He fractured her jaw while she was pregnant.
He did.
And we're supposed to believe Stephen Avery's the dirtbag, and Gregory Allen was,
What?
just a pain in the butt.
Tom Kasork did act like he didn't even know about Gregory Allen, which is the biggest load of crap.
Yeah.
Of course he knew, and so did Vogel. He handled his cases. It's such garbage, man.
So,
Doc.
Oh well, yes. Unfortunately, I do have to go. I'll see if I can come back, but there's no doubt in my mind the importance of what occurred in 1985 regarding Gregory Allen and the civil suit and we've been reading out the depositions. All this is tied in, and it's still the fingers of what occurred, and the fallout of what occurred is still being echoed today. And that's why Stephen must remain in prison. Same with Brendan. It's a really shocking situation. And it's interesting when you hear the actual judge, Hazelwood, and others defend their actions. And poor Penny admitted, I misidentified the wrong guy. No, you didn't, Penny. You've done nothing wrong. Nothing wrong at all.
No. I believe if she had been given a lineup with Allen, I think she would have picked him.
She would have picked him immediately. Yep.
Absolutely.
Let me have a look at your hands, mate. And that
Put them next to each other in the lineup.
That's why they took his photo. They made sure his photo didn't appear in the lineup. That's why he sent what's his face?
Was it Morris?
It was Sandra Morris's husband's the one that went and got the photos, brought them back, and Kasurek went through them before he picked the ones he wanted her to choose from.
That's right. I fully believe that.
Now, not all of that is on the record, but enough of it is on the record where I personally believe that's how it went down. So
I'm pretty sure it came out. I'm pretty sure it was Kalancic was there. He got called in. Remember that day? They were trying to get a hold of detectives, and Kalancic
they were
was
really upset. They were really upset.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And just my final point regarding the crime lab. Remember, Cherie Culhane is the one that did the hair comparison and said that the hair had similarities to Penny Bernstein, and of course, they weren't the same at all, right? They never tested any other hair, including Barb's. Now, apparently that day, Stephen and Barb went, I think, on with a car somewhere to. They went to one of the local quarries. I know that Barb's in chat, but if she can confirm that her and her brother Stephen actually were together, right? And it's likely that
went to jump her car off, wasn't it? Wasn't her battery dead? Or
yeah, I think so. And it's likely that the hair that was on Stephen's shirt actually belonged to his sister Barb.
Yeah, but we all know that hair comparison is junk science anyway.
That's 100% correct.
Yeah. They can't tell without the root and doing DNA on it.
Correct.
There is no science that
No,
can prove anything.
It's literally black magic.
Yeah.
Jim Crane made a great comment. Penny and was another Brendan, both were used. Absolutely. Means to an end.
100%.
All right. We're 58, 59. We've probably got about, it's hour and 11 minutes, but the last couple minutes are just music and credits and stuff. So we don't have too much further to go. We may actually get to finish this. We'll see. Let's listen to a little bit more. 58, 59.
As it turned out, Gregory Allen was serving his sentence, a 60-year sentence,
at the prison in Green Bay,
where Penny had actually been working.
And as a matter of fact, he was about 2 weeks from being in Penny's next class.
No way.
And no, absolutely. And so Penny would never have known this man that would have been sitting feet away from her. In his cell, they found a scrapbook where he had documented all the appeals of Stephen Avery over all those years.
Oh, that's really creepy.
That's more than creepy.
September 11th, 2003, Steve Avery was set free. As soon as he walked out of the gate of the prison, he was mobbed by reporters.
It was the news story in Wisconsin, and he was considered a celebrity. There was a legislator who actually put together a Stephen Avery fund that people can contribute to because he really had no resources and no job skills because he's been in prison for 18 years. There was a beauty salon in Green Bay that gave him a makeover. I remember sending my husband out of town and saying, no, I just need to be alone. And I decided I'm going out running. And I remember running along railroad track, a seldom used railroad track, but just thinking, God, it would be a blessing if a train just came along and flattened me. It was like, what do I do? I can't make this right.
She says every time she saw Stephen Avery's face,
he was on the front page of our local Manitowoc newspaper every day for 2 to 3 weeks.
two things would happen. She'd think, how could I have done this to this man? But at the very same moment she thought that,
The hair on the back of my neck would stand up.
Even after you knew.
Even after I knew intellectually he was innocent, but emotionally, this is the man who I've seen in my nightmares and flashbacks for 18 years.
So those 2 weeks after where his face is in the paper every day must have been very strange.
It was strange.
Yeah.
And then it's also strange to feel like an offender. A little aside here, when I saw Gregory Allen's picture of my actual perpetrator, there was absolutely no physical reaction from me. I would swear I'd never seen him before in my life. So my therapist said to me, you will never be able to attach to Gregory Allen the feelings you had towards Stephen Avery. What you have to do is work on removing those feelings from Steve and looking at Steve as this is an innocent person.
not long after his exoneration, Penny had written to Steve asking if she could meet him and apologize in person. And about 1.5 years after his exoneration, he agreed.
I was so...
Let's pause it here. So the beginning of this clip, this little clip here we played, the husband, Tom, he said that they searched Allen's cell and found where Gregory Allen had scrapbooked all these appeal motions that Avery had filed that he found newspaper clippings of. I thought that was interesting. I didn't know that. I'd never heard that before.
I made a note of it because I'm going to try and get a copy of that.
Yeah, they surely photographed that.
Well, so he's saying that they searched his cell. Now, isn't all that interesting? So they searched his cell 2 weeks before, 2 weeks prior to the DNA coming back, or 2 weeks after the DNA would have came back. He was scheduled to be in her group. And when they searched his cell, they had a scrapbook of Stephen Avery stuff. I want a copy of that cell search. And it would have occurred in 2000. I'm making notes. 2003. Huh.
Yep.
That was good. Man, I am so thankful that Hugh found this and you're sharing this, because that's all very interesting. And I'm wondering why I haven't received it, because I feel like I was pretty detailed, which is the only reason I got what I got from the prison system to begin with, was after fighting with them for as long as I did. But because I got all his cell write-ups, or all his write-ups and all that.
You know as well as I do, if the wording isn't exactly right with these people, they just ignore it. They won't let you have it. Or they make a decision, well, they don't need that. They didn't ask for it. So we're not going to give it to them.
Yep. So 2002, 2003. We want all that. How interesting. Very, very. It's almost like they're inserting things they know haven't been discussed in hopes that someone is curious enough to see what can be dug up.
Yeah, I
Interesting.
thought that was a really interesting comment.
Yeah.
Well, and she talks about her feelings of basically depression because she's accused the wrong guy for attacking her, and he spent all these years in prison. It is a heavy burden. I don't give a damn who you are. That's a heavy burden.
Do you really think she didn't recognize him? Like, it's funny
Well,
how the human mind works, but
yeah,
I
transposed her
don't
face.
know.
It is funny. It's not like a video recorder. We've talked about this. The human memory is it's not, and it can replace things in your mind. I've had it happen to me. I know it's probably happened to everyone here. You remember things incorrectly. You transpose something. Your brain does, and you could have swore you were right. Then you're shown, you transposed this person, and I've done it. I've done it in this case.
Well, she had convinced herself that this was the person,
Yep,
right? Or
that's
she
right.
had been convinced,
Yes.
and it happened in a moment of trauma, which is when your brain is not, you're reacting emotionally more than processing logically. So
And also sorry, Sunshine. Also, you're reliant on the information you're receiving from the law enforcement officers, right?
Yep.
And remember when Dvorak asked Penny to sign the statement, and we all seen the pictures. Penny was beaten around the face and the eyes. Her eyes were bloodshot. She couldn't even read the statement that she was signing. And you're right. It is high trauma. And if you make the wrong mistake right from the start and you carry that through, you can see the consequences down the road. They were devastating.
Yeah.
Plus, I think Gregory Allen had a shirt over his face. He beat her eyes black and blue where they were swollen. So she probably had her eyes closed. So she probably had a black spot for the guy's face in her memory. And they, with like brief glimpses of who attacked her in the
They filled it
beginning.
in. They filled it in.
And they filled it in. That's right.
Yes,
That's
they
why
did. They filled
Couchet's
it in.
sketch was
Yep.
so integral or so
Yep.
integral to
Yep.
selling the wrong guy.
It was an embed. They embedded a false memory.
That's right.
They did.
That carried.
She actually gave a pretty good description of Gregory in her initial description.
Yes, she did.
And she made a point of saying, I made a point to look at this guy and to take in details because I wanted to remember. But then insert what they did with Stephen Avery, and and at that point,
so what she said was probably what she was coached to say on the stand, right, by Vogel, because that's what a lot of victims say. But the physical evidence tells us that she was incapable of getting a good sight at him because he beat her eyes shut and he had his face covered. So I believe that she believes she got a good look at him, but what I think she likely saw was him right before he attacked her. She saw his hands because they were beating her in the face, and she saw his hair and his overall appearance, like size and build. But as far as the image of his face, Couchet's pencil sketch, which was drawn, in my opinion, looking at Stephen Avery's mugshot from Sandra Morris incident,
Yep.
is the image that her brain inserted into a blurry, blobbing, shirt-covered face.
I agree.
Because, yeah,
She froze it there.
Yeah, because if I remember right, there's somebody said something about like the first week she couldn't even see to walk her kids to the bus or something because her eyes were so swollen.
I know she said she couldn't read the statement that Dvorak had written out.
Mm. And I think
We've
that,
all
oh,
seen
you know
that
what?
photo of her. I mean, she
Yeah.
was just so black and blue.
Oh, he
And
beat
they
the hell
were
out
on
of her.
they were thinking they were
Oh
going to
my
have to do
God.
surgery on one of her eyes to keep from losing her eyesight. I feel like I remember that being discussed somewhere. Like he beat one of
I
her
believe
eyes to
that.
the, yeah, that they thought her retina had been detached or something. It was bad. It was bad. He definitely had no problem beating a woman as if she was a man. That's for sure.
He told her he was going to kill her.
Yep. Bob says the day we were all at the yard with him working all the cement, guys.
That's her and Stephen got stuck in the pit, she was saying
Yeah.
earlier that day.
Yep. I remember something happening.
Yeah.
Okay, let's continue on. We're at 101.53. Let's listen to a little bit more.
Nervous.
Can you set the scene? Are you in like a
We're in a
little
very
room
small office, like a 2-room office.
She's getting ready to meet Stephen.
in a legislative building in the state capitol?
There's a sofa and a few chairs.
Penny got there first. Eventually, Steve walked in.
Steve had his attorney, Keith Finley, there from the Innocence Project. I stand up, I extend my hand to Steve. He gives me this hearty handshake. Our lives have been intertwined for almost 2 decades, and it's the first time we've physically touched. He sits down. We talked about things like he had a nephew who was killed in a car accident when he was in prison and couldn't go to the funeral. His grandmother died. He couldn't go to her funeral. His wife had divorced him. He's estranged from his children. At some of them, I know he had one daughter who really stood by him. And so I brought up these losses, and
apologized for each one individually.
He's very quiet, sort of just acknowledged him with a nod of his head. And he said, "I don't blame you, I blame the police."
Because it turned out in the weeks before Penny was attacked, the police had been watching Gregory Allen.
Because he was a known sex offender. They were actually tailing him for the 2 weeks prior to my assault, checking on him sometimes as often as a dozen times a day. On July 29th, 1985, the day I was assaulted, they checked on him once in the morning, and then due to a high volume of police calls, were unable to check on him anymore that day, and that's the afternoon I was assaulted.
Eventually, after Penny and Steve had been sitting in that little room for a while,
time was up and there was no more to be said, and I stood up and walked over to Steve and said to Steve, "Is it okay if I give you a hug?" And he didn't even respond. He just grabbed me in a big bear hug. And I said, so only he could hear, "Steve, I'm so sorry." And he said, "It's okay. This is over."
Makes me want to cry.
And for him to say, "It's okay, it's over," when I know full well his journey's just beginning and he's got a hell of a road.
Yeah.
That's one of the most grace-filled things that's ever been said to me. Fast forward.
About 2 years after that meeting,
I get a call from Janine Geske, my attorney friend,
the one who delivered the news about the exoneration,
who says,
something's happened.
Let's pause it here. So they've had a meeting, and basically she's apologized for everything that big events that's happened in Stephen's life, him missing, and He just says, "Okay, don't worry about it. It's not your fault. This is on the cops." So that was it was a big deal, big event, and I'm sure in Stephen's mind he knew what they had done. And of course, then we're fixing to get into the Halbach situation.
And people try to say that Stephen's angry at all women owe him. I call bullshit.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Okay.
So I didn't know Penny doesn't live in Wisconsin any longer, but it doesn't surprise me.
Well, yeah, it's towards the end of the podcast. They
Okay.
talk about what Tom and Penny did.
Okay. Somebody had
Yeah, Kansas.
tagged me. Yeah, Kansas did, and I just it doesn't surprise me.
Me either.
Because I'm surprised she didn't bring up the "he asked me for money for a house" line that they had her insert. Because what she says about their interaction sounds more like what I would have anticipated it to be, more of like Stephen's attempt to get her to pay him or something, unless that comment about getting money from her was something that he did after he had been arrested, after Teresa disappeared. But yeah.
Trying to raise bail.
Or get an attorney.
Yeah, I think, wasn't that in the phone calls? Maybe at one point did he mention trying to think of people who could help him? I don't know about financially, but maybe that too. But to say that, vouch for his character, more or less. Maybe money too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he was desperate because he knew that was the only thing that was gonna that. I mean, I I don't know if anyone's following the young thug case, but the only reason what happened to Stephen isn't happening in this case is because these guys all have $1 million attorneys who are at the top of their respective fields. Yeah. They are like all on the who's who in a lawyer. Like there's a constitutional law guy, there's another, a criminal law guy. These guys are, and they're still having to navigate a pro prosecution judge who is doing her. I mean, she's done bent over backwards so many times to make it clear she's not favoring the defense. And this prosecutor is just, yeah, I'm going to stop now because that's another just craziness.
One of the
But
worst cases I've ever seen in a courtroom. It's the worst I've ever seen. It's so bad.
on live in living color with
Yeah, it's
streaming on all platforms. And
it's so terrible.
yeah, and like the DA is legit telling on herself every day, trying
It's
to make
laughable.
herself not look bad, but she can't. I don't even think she realizes how obvious her motives and her attempts to trick people are, because
It's
there's just too many eyes on this case to try and use the making a murderer playbook in this case. And they're not as smart as they want us to think they are, or we're not as dumb as they want us to think we are.
I found it really interesting too, and this is a big deal that they were 9 months, 10 months into, or however long. That's just because this hasn't been that long ago, into the trial, and the defense still hadn't gotten all the discovery.
No. And there's been no evidence, no actual physical
No.
evidence linking
Linking.
any of these RICO defendants to
Yeah.
anything. It is all words and words only. Just
And
like, what's her face said about Brendan's case. It
no,
literally
not Roger.
is. Yeah, he said, she said, and they're not even really saying what the prosecution wants you to think they're saying. They're trying to use they, them pronouns,
Yeah.
and the defense is making them clarify because
Yes.
they'll bring up 3 people and then go down another path, get them to say they, them, and then add in 3 people that isn't in the they, them, and then hoping the defense is asleep and not going to catch him doing it. And then they giggle. She literally giggles when she
Yeah.
gets caught.
It's funny also, before we move on here, in the Young Thug case, I remember the state has put up over 150 witnesses on the stand. Can you imagine? I can't even, that's mind blowing.
And no evidence, no
And
physical
no evidence.
evidence. So
Zero.
I think their biggest piece of quote evidence, unquote, is a knifing hit to bullet shells from multiple scenes. But that gun cannot and has not ever been put into anyone's hands besides the person who legally purchased it and has already pled and said that the guys that they want, that are on trial in the RICO part had nothing to do with it. And there's clear evidence they weren't even in the state when this stuff happened.
Crazy.
They were on tour. It is
Yeah.
absolutely insane.
Yeah. It's the worst judicially ran court case I've ever seen. And I mean worse, far worse than the Avery case. And it's bad.
It's bad.
Yeah.
And
Anyway.
yeah, and I feel like they took their cue from the Making a Murderer case. Like they really think, well, they got away with it, so maybe we can.
I don't think they will.
No, I pray the fact that the jury is not trying to get out of it and they're already like over a year in.
Yeah.
Tells me that they are willing to go to the distance. Now I just hope it's for the right and pray it's for the right reasons, right?
So do I.
Because it surely ain't for the money.
No.
They get like $25 a day or something.
Yeah. All right, back to our podcast. Jim Crane says, anyone find it odd the day that she was assaulted that the police got called away? Yeah, I do, but at the same time, we have to remember that they just weren't that big of a department at the time. So I'm not shocked, because it wasn't like a 24-hour day surveillance. It was a drive-by. They were trying to just, kind of keep track of him, where he was going, what he was doing. So, because he did have they knew he was a predator, so they were watching him as closely as they could. So, because I would imagine overtime at that time was a big deal for the department, a big deal. They just didn't have a lot of extra cash floating around. So, anyway, let's see where we're at here. Back up. We're at 104.36. We don't have much more to go. Let's do another little bit here.
There's a woman photographer who's missing.
Teresa Halbach disappeared October 31st after visiting the suspect, Stephen Avery, to take pictures of a car he was selling.
And they are searching the Avery property.
I tried to tell her, stay out of this.
But Penny went on the local news
and said,
I cannot believe this.
That she didn't believe it could be Stephen Avery, that she didn't believe he would be capable of such a thing.
And other people in town thought that too, that this was just another false accusation.
But eventually, after a couple of days of searching, the remains of Teresa's body,
burned human bone and teeth,
were eventually found in a burn barrel at the Avery Auto Salvage Yard.
Stephen Avery claimed that he was innocent, that he was set up by the police. But a few months later, his nephew came forward. And
I want to mention in here, they didn't mention the lawsuit. They did not mention this massive lawsuit because at this point in time, the depositions were done. There's so much in here that's, I mean, we can't even go through it all. We'd be here all night. Of all the things that happened that are left out. So this is another kind of, as Doc talked about, this is kind of a guidepost of how they're presenting this information. Either they didn't look or they did know and just didn't feel like it was time worthy to insert it. I don't know. Anyway, let's go a little bit more. 105-26.
He tells police in an interrogation that the day of the murder, he went to Stephen Avery's trailer. He heard screams inside. Stephen came to the door in a t-shirt and gym shorts. He was sweating. And inside, the nephew sees Teresa Halbach bound to the bed. And what happens next, according to Stephen's nephew, is one of the most awful things I've ever heard. Stephen asks his nephew to rape Teresa with him. And then together, they kill her.
Oh my God. You start questioning your own judgment. I can't even trust my senses. I can't trust my eyes to tell me what I thought I recorded accurately about the world. And then when he gets convicted for killing Teresa, it's like, what kind of character judge am I? Now I can't even judge character. I can't.
She'd been certain twice and wrong twice. And then a worse thought occurred to her.
Would Teresa Halbach be alive today if I hadn't misidentified my assailant?
Meaning what exactly? Like,
Well, I accuse Steve of something he doesn't do. He's convicted. He spends 18 years in prison. Prison is enormously damaging to guilty people. What happens to someone who's innocent?
In other words, did her initial certainty that Steve Avery was her assailant, did that turn him into the guy who murdered Teresa Halbach?
No.
Judge Hazelwood doesn't buy that argument.
Not at all. Not at all.
For one, if you look at the group of people who've been set free after a wrongful conviction, the vast majority of them do okay. They don't commit serious crimes after they've been released from prison. And this was a man with a violent past.
Oh, yeah.
Well before Penny, he'd pulled a gun on a woman.
In the broad light of day.
And demanded that she
come with him.
Nothing happened because the police intervened. But what if they hadn't?
That's not what happened. You're talking about the Sandra Morse incident. That's not what happened.
Sure isn't.
Got that completely wrong.
Yep. She had her baby with her, little girl.
Yep. And he went back home. It was after that she called the cops and they went and arrested him. So they got that completely wrong. But you can hear as this is fading in and out in this interview with Hazelwood, he's continuing to talk in the background. So that's why I said I would really like to have all these interviews individually to see what all was actually said, everything that was talked about. I think it'd be really interesting. I'm sure they wouldn't give those up, but and now she's questioning, I guess, her sanity, saying, because I've been wrong twice. What's going on? Was it my fault because I initially misidentified Avery back in '85? Now here's where we are today. This young photographer's dead because of what I did. I guess that's a question that could run through your mind. I don't know. You guys can comment if you wish. I'm just looking through to see if I've missed anything. Hey, there's Maz. I'm glad saw you last night, Maz, and meant to say hi. We were just busy running our mouth. I'm glad to see you and hope you're doing better. I know you had some issues you were struggling with, so hopefully you're Doing well and getting better. Okay. Yeah, I just glanced at that link. Cherie posted a link in the office. This is the Herald Times reporter article about a 60 Minutes episode that aired on March 17th, 2024, about a healing retreat for people like Penny, who is mistakenly identified. Interesting.
And actually, that episode, I looked, it's on Paramount Plus. If anybody wants to see it.
Oh yeah, I've got Paramount Plus, and I do watch some 60 Minutes episodes from time to time. Jim Crane, this is the same Sandra Morris who claimed that Avery was having sex in his front yard and performing lewd acts, and he was never charged. No, he wasn't. It was just her making these various claims for whatever reason. Susan?
Oh, I'm just thinking about the fact that they actually transferred Gregory Allen, was it to Manitowoc?
Yep.
And that was at the time that Teresa went missing. Is that correct?
That's right. This week of it was in that time frame. I don't remember the exact dates, but he was there. We don't know if there was a crowding issue at the prison. We don't know.
That is such an interesting detail in this.
It is. It's an oddity that I'm sure we'll never get an explanation for. Was it coincidence? We just don't know. It sure is odd, though.
Yeah. Sorry, that just popped in my mind. I know it wasn't really.
I thought about it. I did think about it, and I'm not one for going too far off on things that I can't put some legs under, but I can't explain that, and it's just weird. It's just weird as shit to me. I don't understand. Was there more than one? Was it not only Gregory that got moved out for a short period of time because of something happening at the prison? Did he get some kind of damn brawl or whatever with a group of a damn gang? We just don't know. All kinds of things could be attributed to that are just coincidence. But I'm sorry. I just when you start involving all these characters involved in this saga, the coincidence thing for me starts to float way out of the realm of possibilities. It just does.
Yeah.
Real life coincidences do happen. They do. But holy crap, man. Anyway. All right. We're at 107.33. We just got just a little bit more to go.
I saw the potential for violence in him. But I would be wrong to say I saw in him a Teresa Halbach. I didn't.
And so I asked him if this case had shaken his confidence in his judgment the way it had for Penny.
At first, I tried to figure out what in the world did we do wrong. And I pretty much came to the conclusion that...
at least as far as the courts were concerned.
We did get it right. And we still got a bad result. That's going to be a problem as long as humans judge other human activity. We're not always going to get it right.
That's actually the one thing we can be certain of, he says.
But cases like Avery are rare. I was 25 years on the bench and 15 years or more as a lawyer before that, and I don't think I've ever seen one quite like Stephen Avery.
He says Stephen Avery is an outlier. He's the lesson you don't learn.
It's like I was fishing last spring in Sanibel, on Sanibel Island, and I was in up to my waist trying to fly casting for snook.
It's a kind of fish.
And all of a sudden, this rather dark shape swam right by me, about 8 feet long. And I thought to myself, that's a bull shark. And here I am waist deep. And this shark swam maybe a foot away from me as he went by. What if he'd bumped into me?
Yeah.
What are the odds of this happening? But, life is like that. We face the unexpected, the unknown.
But you're not going to never go fishing there again, are you?
Oh, no, that wouldn't keep me from going fishing.
Then again, the judge didn't get bitten. I kept thinking over and over at the end of this, like the Halbach family. How do they move on after something like this?
Did you call them?
I tried. I reached out to a couple of the family members, but I never heard back.
And what about Penny?
Well, she and Tom sold the chocolate shop and moved to Chicago.
Well, I'm retired. So right now I do a lot of volunteer work. Center on Wrongful Convictions, Children's Hospital. I volunteer at the Morton Arboretum, and so a variety of things. And
altogether, she seems to be doing just fine.
I mean, I question much more. I question things a lot more. Yeah, I think there's much more doubt. And I think I'm much more comfortable living with uncertainty. I've kind of had, I have to be.
That's it. The rest of it is credits and music. That's the end of it.
And they also don't mention the fact that Stephen to this day claims he's innocent.
No. There's a lot left out. So the are you sure question, maybe for them, they're kind of forcing the listener to do their own research. Maybe that's in their mind. It's hard to say. I don't know these gals that produce this show. So maybe for them, that's kind of what they're doing. I don't know. Hey, I'm going to pop up this letter that Sunshine Christine shared. Give me just 1 second here. Sunshine, or somebody want to talk for a second? Something to say?
I was just going to say that I was kind of reading the wiki website on this Radio Lab. They've been around for quite a long time. And I think that they're trying to bring eyes, ears, and people to ask questions while not getting on the wrong side of those who scream the loudest when they feel wronged. Because apparently there was like some episode they had to remove called Truth Trolls or something. I found that an interesting name for a podcast, and it got people all offended. Now I want to go see what it's about to see. But yeah, they're based out of New York City, and they used to run them on public radio. They've won a bunch of awards, and the people who host it now are not the people who started it. So.
Oh, okay. Matt says, we all know Stephen was a troublemaker, and certainly no angel, but that doesn't make him a killer. And that's exactly right.
That's
he
right.
Can be just a complete ass. We've all seen it. We've all accepted. I've known it for years. I just accept it. We've all met people in our lives that are jerks and can be cantankerous, but that doesn't mean they're a killer.
I've been a jerk and an ass.
Yep. So have I.
Yep. So, and I haven't been through near as much as Stephen has been through.
Okay.
So that being said, I think we need to recognize like what has been done to him in the name of quote justice unquote, that I think we can all say was not very justice based for him. So could he have chosen to be less frustrated about it, of course, but do I get why he, acts the way he acts? Yeah, I do. I completely understand it
Sure.
because, until I've had to walk in his shoes, I'm not going to say that I wouldn't be, you know, I wouldn't be much of a people person, and I wouldn't have my hopeful. I would like to think I would keep my, hopeful and half glasses half full attitude, and always try and be kind and all that. But it would
Yep.
be a lot more difficult if I'd spent over. I mean, what's he up to now, guys? He's in his 60s, right? And I
Yeah,
think,
he's a year younger than me, and I just
okay,
turned 60. I just turned 63.
all right. So he's 62 years old, and he has done 40 years of that in prison for crimes he hasn't committed. So,
Basically. Yeah. So basically, what you're saying is that you would hope your personality wouldn't be abrasive, but it probably would. I think mine would
yeah,
too.
yeah, yep. And I would be, I understand
Yeah.
I understand why he's the way he is. I also understand that um, anyone connected to law enforcement has done their best to paint a very disparaging picture of him any opportunity they had. And there's not many people who have gone on the record to try and show a different side of him, because they don't fare well if they do.
Right.
Um, so,
It's not, speaking of people going on the record, I'm just going to mention this, and we'll get onto this later. But I found it interesting that in convicting a murderer, that neither Sheriff Jerry Pagel nor Sheriff Marco Wiegert went on record with them. We heard nothing. They were not in convicting a murderer, and you damn well know they
that's
were asked.
interesting.
They
That's
had
interesting.
you know that these people were asked to participate. They were integral
Hmm.
to the 2005 case.
I bet you, I wonder if it was because they couldn't remember their lines.
I tend to think that they're trying to distance themselves from the case. That's what I think, but that's just me.
Well, if they don't remember what they claim they did, and they don't remember what they said they did, and it's on record, and they get on record again and say something different, then they can be questioned about that in future litigation. Why did you say this
Yep,
and then say this, right?
yep, right.
So,
Well, and
and
actions taken during the 2005 case too, um, questionable things in my mind. But
yeah, for sure. I come back to like them looking for what was it they called in wanting extra um what was that call? Right, the day I was on the 7th. There's weird phone calls where Poggle was talking to him right before they quote found the bones, which there are no bones. There's pieces of what they claim is human bone, none bigger than a half inch. Um, but before all that went down, remember the call where they're trying to line up? Oh, what was it? It was before they went to search that day. And Poggle calls in and he talks to. It's been so long since I heard those calls.
I don't remember.
Um,
I'm think
yeah,
I'm
I'll have to.
You
what
mean
pops into
change
my
your
mind is
plans? Change your
No,
plans, Bill?
this was early that day. These are calls that weren't found until later on. But and then I think yours found them and we played them. But they had called in on one of the secure channels. There's no reports about it, and they're talking about having to go get more. Was it tarps or bins or remember the buckets with the lids? Is any of this ringing a bell? Do you have any
Well,
more
there
buckets?
was
I
a
think I
there was
have some.
there was a call of um, uh, Captain Paul Rush calling in, and I can't remember if he talked to Sipple or one of the others, but he said he's went and purchased 15 buckets, and the guy says with lids, and he said yeah, and the guy at dispatch said, well, there's 3 here
Yep.
at the shop. That
Yep.
was
So,
Captain. That was Rush.
so
But I
there's
don't
a
think that was the
series.
5th, though, right?
No,
No,
I
no,
think
that
it was
wasn't
the
the bit.
7th.
7th or 8th, maybe.
Yeah, it was the
Yeah.
day they found the bones, supposedly. It was the
Well,
morning of.
that was the 8th.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so this was all happening before the burn pit finally brought forth fruit of a crime. They had searched for 3 days. There's a call between Pagel and somebody, and then who did you say? Rush and somebody else. There's like 3 calls that occur prior to them getting there and doing the search.
I
Now,
don't remember
this
the
was
call you're talking
after
about.
Cuss Road on the 6th. Okay, whatever they
Cuss Road was the 7th.
right, but so well, no, yes, but yes, the Cuss Road was the 7th, but whatever happened on the 5th and 6th, that next morning we have the buckets and everything then starts appearing and getting staged for Stephen Avery's to be the crime scene. This is how my mind has worked it out. Now, this may not be documented, but I know these calls took place early on the 7th. So the 5th and the 6th, they're still not claiming they have anything at Stevens, right?
Other
But we
than
have all this stuff
the
happening.
RAV4.
Well, yeah, that's it. But we have that's it. But let's be clear here. We have a RAV4 that nobody saw until she showed up to find it. And that only gets him on the property. And then there's no evidence there. All the evidence is Cuss Road or in the Manitowoc County owned quarry.
Yep.
Then we get the calls about the buckets with the lids. And then we have this stuff appearing on Stevens' property.
Can't forget about Mickles Materials either, because they were there on the 6th and found something. So they talked about flesh and skin or something. I can't remember the exact report.
Yeah.
And they sent people there too.
Tissue and blood.
Tissue. Yep. That's right. That's where the dogs hid up there.
That's where the medical examiner signed the death certificate too.
Well, yeah, on the 10th, but then on the 6th they called Ertl in, and he took his gang over there, and they found whatever, and then they dug down 6 or 8 feet and removed all that, whatever it was. They had a tarp there too, which we've never seen what was found on that tarp, and they did photograph it. I've asked for those photographs, by the way, from the DOJ.
Yeah, I bet you it's going to be a brown tarp.
Well, they've already got one brown tarp. I hope it's a different color.
No, I bet you it's probably the brown tarp that carried everything from there to Stevens burn pit, and it's the only brown tarp in it that's mentioned. All the other tarps are blue.
Yeah. Anyway, let's get back to this letter.
Yeah. Wow. Wow, that
posted.
was actually quite illuminating.
I thought everybody would kind of enjoy this podcast. Like I said, it wasn't very long, but it had a lot of information in it. And some of it was definitely incorrect. But anyway, this letter is to officers Jeffrey Tech and Detective Hank Ospedale.
Ospedale,
Espadale.
I
I'm
think.
sorry. Yeah. Susan, I can't really read this very well. Can you read this letter?
Sure, it's regarding the state versus Gregory Allen. Gentlemen, please be advised that Mr. Allen came to my office again today, denying any wrongdoing and stating that he was not involved in this incident. He presented to me a statement from Redacted and a notice from Weyerhaeuser indicating that employees do not wear tennis shoes and must wear leather shoes, claiming that is what he was wearing on this occasion. My only question would be, are we all certain that it is Mr. Allen that was seen, quote unquote, prowling, which resulted in his being charged with disorderly conduct? In reviewing the reports, it seems clear that Officer Tech can identify Mr. Allen, but I just want to make sure that that is the case. Thank you. Sincerely, XOXO. Dennis R. Vogel, as Melanie Little would say.
And this letter is dated, if you can see up top there, January 15th, 1986.
And prowling is a disorderly conduct charge. I mean, this isn't even a major charge, and he's trying to get Allen out of it.
Yep. Why?
Since when does a DA advocate for a defendant?
No shit.
One that
He came to his
has-
office again.
Yes. And one that has a clear documented history of these events, at minimum, of doing these sorts of crimes, because there's multiple cases on him already that Allen has put down. I mean, wouldn't you want the easy conviction? You got a cop who's clearly saying it's Allen. Why are you so quick to advocate for a known repeat offender? A dirtbag. Like, who is he that you...
What the hell?
It's just the most bizarre thing.
I agree.
I sure would like to know what's behind Vogel and Allen. I mean, it almost seems like, is Allen blackmailing Vogel?
I know you set Stephen Avery up, so now you got to help me. But he was helping him before that.
Yeah.
So I don't even feel like Stephen Avery came into play. Unless it was, you already got me off the hook once, do it again. I don't know. That's ballsy. If so, unless you know you can get away with it. So what
It's
does he have on them?
Vogel to write that letter. Oh my God.
Yeah. It's
something.
It's talk about thinking you're untouchable.
I wanted to show, before we get out of here, I wanted to show this photo. If you look in the lower right corner there, right here, there's a light blue trailer. Now, if you just kind of if you just look at that, it does appear. My first glance, I thought, okay, that's a white trailer, but then I look again, it's like, no, that's light blue.
There's a white van there, but you wouldn't call that a trailer.
No,
just to the left over there.
Oh,
There's no other.
I'm going to skip forward here in the photos and see it's go completely away from that area.
I'll go back out just a little bit.
Hold on a second. I'm just checking This is around the
Right.
barn here.
Look into the yard. It looks like a white trailer there
Oh wait,
where you
let me go
were.
back to the white trailer first. This is, this part of the photograph here past is cut off. It skips way over to another area. This light blue trailer is, to me, if you look at it,
Okay.
it's definitely light blue. Okay, let's move
Now,
forward.
now look up where you see where the car is that had the license plate
Oh,
in front of that white van.
up in here?
Oh, you changed the photo again.
No, it's going to go back.
Yeah,
talking
up
about it?
amongst those cars, there's like a white trailer. It looks like. No, not that far up. Down, straight down, Jack.
There?
No, straight down. Go down toward the bottom of the photo.
Well, you got this van here, then you got whatever the hell that is.
Oh, I see it. That white
No,
square
no. Below that.
right there.
That looks like a white trailer. No, not that. Yeah, there.
It looks like it could be like an RV trailer or something, right?
I'm looking on YouTube, so I'm probably slower with probably behind. But yeah, that looks like it could be a trailer, a white trailer.
Yeah, but
small one.
Yeah, it's not like this one down here on the right, what I would call an actual trailer, and it's certainly light
Yeah.
blue.
Yeah. I don't know.
We
I just spotted
we
that.
scan
maybe
forward in the
that one.
photos just a little bit. This is the berm. And he's zoomed out, way out. Okay, here we go. Here's a wider shot.
Mm-hmm. I really think he was referring to the blue trailer.
This is what I see
Myself.
right here, because this is right down that's Barb's trailer right there. And then here's this light blue one that was used for storage.
Which they searched.
They did. So I think this had to be the blue trailer, not a white trailer. I don't know anywhere that's on the property. Because the station wagon that they found a place in is right down here.
Yeah.
Area.
Mm.
Actually, I think it's this one right here.
Yeah. Just above it there. That looks like a little white trailer to me. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we've answered.
Some panties in there. Totally
Well,
unrelated.
yeah, completely. Anyway, all right. Let's see if there's any questions here that we haven't got to yet. You want to read that out, Susan?
Kansas Foxley asks, please, would the panel comment on the significance of the pic of Stephen Avery with Tom Kasurik's instructions and signature on the back? To me, it's a smoking gun in the frame up for 1985. Yeah. Please, what's it say? Please keep or?
Yeah. Yep. It was in the deposition of I'm pretty sure it was Kalanzik that Sheriff Kasorik had written on the back of that photo, "Do not throw away, please keep," or something to that effect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Awfully sus.
It is. Especially if he's the only one that he wrote on.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's all the questions I see.
Did you see what Cherie had? Did you go through those? Or whoever pinned them? Cherie did. Double D asked, did Earl destroy the trailer? I don't know about that. I think it was eventually junked, that blue trailer.
Yeah, it had leaks and had problems, and but I don't know that it was Earl that destroyed it. That I don't know. I don't know if it belonged to Earl. I don't know if it belonged to Earl or just belonged to the Avery
I thought
Savage.
it was Stevens, but you could be wrong.
I know he had a bunch of stuff in it.
Yeah.
There's another question apparently that I've missed. Cherie highlighted it. Passive Bear said, "Why was Gregory Allen called?" Oh, we answered that one.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep, I think we've got that's all of them. That's all the questions we got. So anyway, I thought this was a good conversation piece going back to the 85 case. This, like I said earlier, this is going to lead into next week. We're going to talk about Gregory Allen. Maybe not as deep as what we had talked about it before, but certainly deep enough to understand who he was and what he did. We're going to get into the
fascinating. It's a fascinating subject, Chad.
Yeah, we're going to get into the 1991 assault that he did in Hennepin County that wasn't discovered until years later. And, that leads into the depositions and what the state found out and kept it to themselves.
Yeah.
So, unless somebody has anything else.
And the timing of it all.
Yeah.
Yeah, the timing is definitely.
Coincidence?
Doc has actually shared something on. He's actually shared something on Discord. Maybe I can get this on screen right quick before we go. Okay. Let me pop this off for a second. This is going to be our end screen. And I'm going to share this other one. You want to read that out, Susan?
8. A white camper trailer located near the vehicle with the license plates was examined. As a result, a pair of found pennies were recovered. Subsequently, these were submitted to the lab as item CV. 9. Assisting Tom Sturdivant of the Wisconsin Division of Criminal Investigation, a burn pit located south of Stephen Avery's garage was sifted. Yeah, I think that is the one that I just pointed out, a white camper trailer. That one above the vehicle with the license plates. I'm guessing that's where they found the phone.
Interesting. Okay. This is from Earl's report.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Because it's a trailer, it's not like a camper, not a living, a house trailer.
Right.
It's a camper trailer, and that's exactly what that looks like.
But they didn't find anything of relevance, so I guess they let it go.
Purple song, it's totally unrelated. Probably the people that owned that trailer that scrapped it.
Or like one of the teen boys using it. Or exactly somebody who had it before that.
Yeah.
I just think it's funny how the English language has so many different definitions for a word. And if we're not very intentional about how it's being used in its context, it can assume a meaning that then, if we're not actively trying to make sure that, just like how and what really has brought that to my attention is seeing it being done in the YSL case, like how they're intentionally trying to be deceptive about the words they're using to in a case. They'll use it one way the entire time and then hope they can sneak it in for something else and not get caught. And now it's got me curious, how many times did they do that in Stephen and Brendan's case? And it
Perceptions
wasn't
are
caught.
what they are.
Yeah, and it wasn't caught because it was poor buting and straying, both who they came in late, and they had little or no help, and the same tactics that we saw in the Stephen Avery with the discovery dumps late. Everything is being brought out like, it's a Brady, but because they did supply it, when they were caught, it's not really a Brady, because when I hear Brady, I'm thinking you're busted trying to be
Yeah.
deceptive. You committed a Brady violation, but because they got caught committing it and then they turned it over, it's not a Brady violation. How is that not a Brady violation? Like, oh, yay
Yeah.
me, I caught you, but not
They
yay
play
for my
such
client.
games. They
Yeah,
play such games.
they
Yeah. It's
really
disgusting.
do. And the more you learn about the law, the more you realize just how completely rigged it is for, especially if you're innocent, trying to prove your innocence.
Yeah.
Like, it's awful.
I put up another
Agree.
photo that Doc shared with me on.
That's not it. That's not close to the license plate car,
Well,
which is
it's
how
not
they described it.
not too far away.
It's a long way
Yeah.
away.
Well,
I think it's that little one just above the car.
it could
We need
be.
the
I really
one with
do.
the
It's a little
station
camper.
wagon. Yeah, we need the ones that were taken around the time they took the ones of the station wagon. Like, that roll of film might actually have that camper in it.
I think it's
Perhaps.
completely irrelevant anyway. So
Yeah, probably.
doesn't matter. Yeah.
Probably. If it either it's irrelevant or it's been destroyed by now, because it was relevant and they wanted to make sure that we never knew why. But yet you just don't know. Because if it
Right.
was relevant to their convicting Stephen, it would have, been well documented, well
Oh,
discussed,
hell yeah. Those
and
panties had
all
Teresa's
those
DNA
things.
on them. Yeah.
Yeah.
It would be extremely relevant.
But as Seven Pop would remind us, there were plenty of strange underwear found in this investigation.
No doubt. No doubt. All righty, we're pushing 3 hours, which is a little longer than I intended to go, but we were able to finish it, so that's even better. Anyway, I'm going to call it quits. Any final thoughts you guys want to share before we go? I know Doc and Sheree had to go, but and that's okay. I appreciate them coming and commenting with their thoughts. Anything you guys want to share before we go? Right quick.
I'll just say thank you, Jack, for bringing this back around.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's always fascinating to talk about the 85 case, all of it. So thank you.
I have to refer back to Hugh Fraser because he's the one that brought it up to me, and I thought it was really interesting. I listened to it and I thought, yeah, this would be a good topic for discussion. We haven't talked about the 85 case much lately. But I think a lot of people, I think a lot of people, they're keen to really get that case file and go through it and see what we can get from it, what really happened that we don't know. So I have to thank him for that, and I will. So anyway,
Did I hear you right when you said that we're gonna discuss some Gregory Allen stuff?
yeah, that's next. That's going to be starting next week. We'll talk about him. We'll see where we get. And it may go into a couple of different podcasts to discuss.
Well, I might have to see if I can participate because I do like chit chatting about that gentleman. Not
Absolutely.
You have a
gentleman.
lot of
Please.
knowledge. You have
Please. Well,
a
the
lot of knowledge.
because you wouldn't let it go, the 1991 stuff. You're the reason we even know about it at all, and it was such a shocking, eye-opening thing.
It made it make sense, didn't it?
It did because of
Yeah.
what happened afterwards. It's crazy.
The
It's
timing.
just crazy.
I still think maybe that's what I'll try and do is do one of those timelines, like of the dates of everything, and see if I can get it. I'm gonna do my best. If I can do
Okay.
a timeline and get it to you, maybe that'll be a visual aid that will help it for those who don't recognize the significance, like because I know there's some of us that really understand that, but a lot of people are still on the fence, because that hashtag I used for a long time, Gregory Allen is the key.
Yep.
And I just feel like if I could get others to see it the way it flows, it literally makes it all make sense. Because nothing makes sense in this case unless you can get people to understand the significance of what was being experienced with Gregory Allen along the same time. And so I really need to try my best to do that and pray,
Okay.
and I hope that it helps because
If you have time, please do. That would be great.
okay, all right, and thanks always for everyone who watched and for letting me come on, and because I love talking about this case, and yeah, so I thank you to everyone who watched. My dog's like, you need to walk me, Mom. So it's starting to get on my nerves. All right. All right.
Thanks,
Well,
Christina. Thank
yeah.
her. You're always welcome, and we're glad to have you. So, with that said, all I can do again is thank everyone for their commenting and thoughts about this, and we're going to get more of the same. It's going to be a little bit. We're diving off into Gregory Allen next week. Be thinking about it if you need information or whatever. There's a ton of information in the library on Foul Play about Gregory Allen. So bring your questions if you wish, your comments, whatever, because that's what's coming next week. So with that said, I'm going to get something to eat. I'm sure Susan's probably ready too. I'm going to say this has been a Foul Play production.